Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4 Kaiserreich Island. Let's continue on from where we last left off. So Black Monday has struck the island. We are now what financial experts would consider poor and fucked. But we'll see how it goes, because like Black Monday right now, it is 40% consumer goods, negative 60% factory output, construction speed. Overall is pretty... Oh, my focus! No! Okay. Let's assess the damage then. Fine. You win this round. Do I need to get my time saved up on this? Garbage. Unease in Ulster. The province of Ulster, particularly in areas that made up Northern Ireland, have long been the most industrialized region of Ireland. For decades, Lula's arguments against Irish home rule or independence have felt that the rest of the country would use the area as an economic crutch, propping up the comparatively more rural south. As a result of Black Monday putting a severe strain on the Irish economy, said fears have sprung from the grave, spreading like wildfire among the Protestants of Ulster, including within the Ulster Democratic Party. UDPDDs have publicly made their demands known through angry speeches in Dáil Éireann, insisting on the well-being of Ulster, being the economically strongest province of the Isle, and having joined the Irish Republic only because they feared Syndicalist rule more so. Must be put first during the economic recovery, and made vague, only ominous threats of people in the province if their urgings were not followed. This is naturally much of a fury of other parties in the chambers, who point out Ulster is not the only province in the country which is suffering, and that the UDP's insistencies are little more than bare concealed selfishness. While Collins and many of his cabinet share the other party's strong sense of frustration at the UDP's unreasonableness in a time of national crisis, their refusal to address rumors of Catholics being fired in disproportionate numbers, he and his ministers are painfully aware that they are unfortunately struck between a rock and a hard place on the matter. They are dependent on the UDP's confidence in the supply agreement to preserve a Sinn Féin majority in the Dáil, and are keen to maintain peace in the Isle, even if appeasing the concerns and interests of the loyalist population may sometimes upset the general Irish populace. Okay, so we assess the damage. More stability loss. Look, I don't need stability. I played from worse positions than this. You loyalists up there, you can't trick me. Ulster comes first. What do you need me to do for this? There are no half measures. Our efforts are either seen as appropriate for the UDP or for the country as a whole. There is no in between. Okay, cool. Non-existent, non-existent. So we either support the North or we support the entire country, and there's no... Oh, my off-map civilian factories! Oh, that's probably what the occupation was from. Okay. In the past 2 years, I love how, like, somber the music is right now. It's like, shit's fucked, man. In the past 2 years, while the Irish economy did not exactly boom, it enjoyed a relatively stable growth, particularly in industrial sectors where many had found themselves drawn to the cities with the promise of a reliable wage. While Ireland remains one of the most agrarian nations in Europe, this shift has led to the development of what can be seen as a proper working class, as was previously only seen in the industrial heartland in the north. This province's great of steady growth and steady jobs was one of the carrots Sinn Féin were able to rely on in order to ensure support from the urban areas. With the economic trauma resulting in the recent crash of German markets, all this has come to an end. As the Irish economy continues to contract more and more, factories are beginning to shut down, leaving their former employees without any alternate employment to turn to. With the meager savings they may have just kept starting to run dry, many now feel that building resentment towards the incumbent Sinn Féin government who can no longer position themselves as a party of prosperity. Without this unspoken contract between them and their voters, many now find themselves wondering why they should bother voting for the status quo party to begin with. Later promises salvation for the workers who've been left behind by Sinn Féin, while Saroshat Koryastul acts as a refuge for those on the right who fear the prospect of a Labour government. Sinn Féin now is faced with a nightmare that any incumbent party must somehow try to ask voters to forget all that they have previously done and show that this time they will be different. I'm sure that is going to work as well as you could imagine. Also, I do like how all the parties here are like descriptions. I like how much like flavor there is in Kaiserreich. Of course, I don't have time to read all of it. That would be going maybe a little bit too far there. Okay. Emergency taxes. Bail out Northern Industries. Stabilize the punt. Well, let's bail out Northern Industries first. This is going to give us a 10% factory output, which honestly is not that important. Because we have like 2 fucking military factories. Who cares? The silent ports. As demand for the continent plummeted, it was immediately felt in the many ports of Ireland. As every day less and less ships arrive, and those that did arrive left with less and less cargo. Where once the ports had been buzzing with activities, quays stacked high with produce ready to be shipped off to the mainland Europe, now they're only emptiness. From various dock workers in Ireland's major ports, this was a time of great idleness. And they had nothing to do. They talked. The Naval conversation of trivial matters like sports or domestic life inevitably gave way to discussions on the deteriorating economic situation. And as the days went on, these conversations grew increasingly bitter. Many began openly to doubt the government's ability to fix the crisis, and some even began to ask if maybe something different was needed. Eventually, they didn't have any money spare to chat at the pub anymore, so they stood in the cold, milling around in the vain hope that some work would appear that day, before the arbitrary time arrived to head home empty-handed again. So it looks like they are kind of supporting the Labour Party at least a little bit. Who's second in this? Social Conservatives and then Labour. Okay, we bailed out Northern Industries. So what does that do for you? You need political power. You also need me to not be dealing with the impact of Black Monday. I don't know how you... Okay, let's stabilize the punt. Teams, I mean, weekly stability goes to 0.5%. That's pretty good. I like this, like, passive stability gain. We have an election next year. Bitches and pennies. I don't know what the hell a penny is. Ever since the Great Depression in the 1920s, conflict between the far left and the far right paramilitaries have been persistent occurrence within Ireland, clashing with each other over, as well as with loyalist guard groups in the north. These two paramilitary groups, the Socialist Irish Citizens Army, or the Pennies, and the far-right Nationalist Guard, known as the Blue Shirts, or Stitches, trace their origins to the old anti-treaty IRA. Their nickname originated from the remaining symbol of their common descent, the Eastern Lily, a stylized Calais lily badge sold and worn to commemorate the Easter Rising, with pen and paper lilies worn by Kaiserreich and the ICA, and the embroiled lily patches worn by Antos Nais Utia and the National Guard. The choice of lily has ended up being a visible marker of one's political allegiance. Black Monday crisis has led to an upswing in paramilitary recruitment and violent incidents. This has included attacks on left and right-wing speakers at meetings, street fightings, and acts of vandalism and arson on properties owned by the opposing sides. Particularly in Ulster, where tensions around the issues of workers' rights, the Ulster privileges, and allegations of discrimination against Catholics are steadily worsening. Antois Naistuta, seeking to avoid giving the government an excuse to ban their party, continues to officially maintain that the Blue Shirts have been disbanded and that these clashes are the work of independent vigilantes and not attributable to them. But many naturally remain skeptical of this claim. The ICA and their party, Sarah Are, have also been inextricably linked, though both also remain equally as bands. These groups see Irish nationalism and revolutionary socialism as one and the same, and will stop at nothing to advance their arms, even accepting support from the British, if the rumors are true, that is. The War of the Lilies doesn't have the same ring. Okay, -2, -2% stability. The War of the Lilies, I think it could work. War of the Roses, War of the Lilies, it could be like the War of the Daffodils. I will say War of the Daffodils definitely doesn't work. Okay, we stabilize the punt. We can improve things a little bit more. Suppress northern industrial action. We improve you a little bit. Like, how long do we... So we have... Because we can't do this. Instantly canceled. Oh, no, I can do this. But it does need 55 political power, which is very expensive. We're at -26, shit. Life amongst ghosts. Ireland's farmers were not strangers to hard times, whether it be bad weather, unfair prices, or the ancestral horrors of the blight baked into their psyche. Those that tended the fields or grazed their livestock only did so because they had been survivors, those who had made it through the bad times. But they were surrounded by those that didn't, as they watched their sheep browse among the stone shells of old houses, or graze their cattle over the faint ridges of forgotten potato drills. They reminded of those who had long since departed. Of late, however, a new set of ghosts had begun to haunt rural Ireland. Houses left newly abandoned, their owners left with nothing, as their demand for cattle and other products collapsed. They sold their land in an attempt to make what they could before departing for the cities, but this was often for far less than what it was worth. Slowly, what had once been patchworks of ownership began to concentrate around fewer but more comfortable farmers, who found themselves greatly benefiting from the downturn. As these families left their homes, they could not help but wonder how such a thing could be allowed to happen. How could the Irish government manage to ruin things for its farmers, almost as badly as the British had? A government they had once believed in, for that matter. While many undoubtedly still felt the connection between Sinn Féin and their freedom, they doubted if it could ever truly trust the party again. Can you guys like not hate me for once in your life? Can I play one country where everyone's like, fuck, I love the government. Everything is going great. Emergency taxes. So for you, we need 55. That's so expensive. That is so your research bonus. I could not give less of a shit about that. Make people like us more. Stability goes down. We get a little. I mean, we might actually need this. We might need the political power for trying to get the North to not completely hate us. Power of the central bank. Country perception of the government's efforts will improve. So unacceptable. So everyone's like mad at me, which is very sad. The anniversary. Today, the 24th of April, 1936, marks the 20th anniversary of the start of the 1916 Easter Rising. Many were unsure whether or not the festivities would go ahead as planned, but all fears were allayed by the instructions from the office of the president. It began with an elaborate military parade through the streets of Dublin, culminating in a solemn procession down O'Connelly Street in front of the General Post Office, where the proclamation of the Irish Republic was first read out on Easter Monday. Marching bands, both brass bands and pipers, accompanied the troops, playing old Gaelic airs in the martial style. The streets were bursting with the crowd present, to the extent that some people watched from the decks of boats floating in high on the Liffey. The atmosphere was jubilant, and no onlooker would believe that this was happening in a country whose economy was falling to pieces at the very moment. As the parade stopped, the soldiers assembled, facing the GPO. A single military officer marched forward in the front of the building and read out the proclamation, as prayers had done 20 years previous. But, to the surprise of both the crowds and the officials that were gathered, this was not just any officer. President Collins, wearing his general's uniform from the War of Independence, stood facing the country. The man who had perhaps done more than anyone else to win Ireland its freedom. He began in the only words that he could have. Irish men and women. Are we going to have to read the entire declaration? I don't know how long it is. Okay, no, it's just one event. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and the dead generations from which she received her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to flag and strikes for her freedoms. Finishing the proclamation, he was initially met with a brief stunned silence, and then rapturous applause. When this abated, he began to resolutely address the nation, speaking with conviction. He acknowledged the challenges the country is facing, and he urged us all to face them together. He went on saying that the military, the Easter Rising itself, was not going to be a success, but it was built on the hopes in the face of utmost desperation, much like how Ireland was now in its current predicaments. Closing the speech, he announced that on the 24th of April was become a formally recognized Independence Day for Ireland, to be celebrated annually. This was the mark of a new beginning. With Ireland's relationship with itself, he said, directed his attention towards the few token loyalists in attendance, and with the world at stage. His words were met with, at worst, quiet admiration from across the political spectrum. Regardless of their positions currently, all political movements in Ireland, except for the Loyalists, could be traced to the Easter Rising. And as such, it was only one of the few things that united the country. Whether or not this new beginning he spoke of meant future for Ireland, being reaffirmation for the status quo, or more radical change, was not relevant to this. From that day alone, everyone realized that despite the ongoing rampant upheaval, they still had their so long sought after freedom and independence, and for a short while, that was all that mattered. 20% war support, holy heck. Well, I will not say no to that. Now, the general populace is not, like, super happy with where we're at right now. So we're getting 0.34. You're going to be a stability loss. That's going to counteract, weekly change minus 0.5. It's so bad. It's so not good. Okay. Is there anything down here we can do? No, not at all. It's really just this tree. The rise of the Reds. Since Black Monday, our nation has been concerningly increased with subversion and violence perpetrated by syndicalist agitators. One notorious incident is the murder arising from a land dispute in Edgeworthstown in County Longford, surrounding the treatment of tenants whose rents were fixed, but wages were declining as a result of the economic crisis. The local tenants association passed a resolution inviting the intervention of Sir Eyre and implicitly its armed wing, the Irish Citizens Army, resulting in the tragic death of land agent Gerald Moore O'Farrell's son Richard. This occurred at a dinner party after that was stormed by the ICA men dressed in Guardia uniforms and carrying revolvers, with the intention of kidnapping Gerard. Richard fought against his father's would-be kidnappers, leading to both O'Farrells being shot during the scuffle, the son fatally. A Dublin bus and tram strike organized in response to the sacking of the driver accused, without evidence of dangerous driving, has also seen extended involvement from Jim Loughran's banned Irish Syndicalist Party, which committed a cell to organize the striking workers and extensively covered the strike in their party's newspaper. In addition, members of the Irish Citizen Army fired on the tires of army trucks deployed to provide transport for the city in replacement for the striking buses, injuring 2 members of the Guardia while doing so. Though the strike was resolved and the Guardia arrested 44 Syndicalists involving Larkin's son and high-ranking ISP member Jim Larkin Jr., many are beginning to fear the implication of this rise in Syndicalist activity, and question whether Ireland could potentially fall to Syndicalism as Britain did. Since this strike, there had been a sporadic but consistent protests taking place in Dublin, made up of disaffected workers from urban and rural backgrounds, and generally those just discontent with the government. These protests were taken in form of disruptive but peaceful marches and demonstrations outside the Dial, under the watchful eye of the Guardia, in the unlikely event that anything further develops. Okay. What are we missing? Fighters and close air support. Look, I can't... No way I can afford that right now. I'm sorry. Only 87 days. Negligible is like... It's not... No. Do not cancel. And these are only 14 days. They are pretty fast. 21 days on you. More factory output. We get a free civilian factory in Munster. I'm not going to say no to that one. Factory output. Empower the central bank. We're going to take you next. 21 days. We have 81 days on you. Both of them are unacceptable. Nobody's happy right now. So maybe I shouldn't try to balance everyone. Maybe I should just tell like the loyalists to go fuck themselves. Is a possibility. Clashes at Trinity. The university grounds in Trinity College exploded into bedlam today when a seminar on women's rights given by progressive labor leader Owen Shishi Skeffington conceded with a speech regarding the resurrection of Portugal by Gerald Ole Cunningham, a prominent Antois Nois Lunta political leader of the far-right party's youth wing. These attract large numbers of supporters from both parties who, upon recognizing each other, began to fight. In recent years, the socially liberal and economically left-wing Progressive Labour Party and the radical abstentionist and pro-intelligent integralist wing of Antois Nois Lunta have come to command a notable support base among the youth of Ireland. Notably university students, leading to the formation of the youth groups of the Young Ireland Associations led by O. Cunningham and Young Labour, which the later of which political commentators suggested was found to attract the youth away from the more extremist appeal of AN. Reports vary on the origin of the violence, with sources sympathetic to the Young Ireland Association claiming that the members of the Young Labour attempted to prevent O. Cunningham's speech and ambushed several of his followers, while other sources sympathetic to the Progressive Labour Party claim that the Young Ireland Association threw out the first punch by attacking left-wing students on their way to attend Shishi Skeffington's seminar. Several injuries have been reported in calls in the wake of the battle from PLP and AN supporters that there should be no free speech for integralists and to fight the West Brit Sindhis respectively. Increasing concerns that this incident will lead to violent clashes between the PLP and the AN supporters in other universities where sympathies for the two parties are strong amongst students. Okay, we're at 41, 70 days. We can definitely take you if we can at least, because right now, unacceptable, it's not the worst. There are many things that people do that are unacceptable, or that you find unacceptable. Insufficient. See, we can deal with insufficient, right? Insufficient ain't bad. 14 days, 14 days, 14 days. So we're not going to be able to get all of these. Let's go with a building slot, I guess. Seems okay. Kind of. Do not, I want to click these buttons to lead the political power. Do not click those buttons. The dance hall debate. The Catholic Church and social conservatives in Ireland have long been opposed to the existence of dance halls, regarding them as responsible for spreading debauchery and social immorality, such as fornication and prostitution, as a foreign influence corrupting traditional Irish values. Keeping with his staunch belief in traditional Irish nation, devout of its Christian faith, Armand de Valera, the leader of the large opposition party, and Sorstrat Crunchduel introduced a private members bill in the Dáil, calling for draconian regulations on public dance premises, which would be required to obtain a license subject to discretion of the district court, with Gardier and a priest granted the powers to make oppositions. Though in, I guess you don't pronounce the S because it wouldn't be in Sorat. And Orstat, a Croistil bill was supported by an odd alliance of Antos Nostita, Clan na Talnan, and the Labour Party. The bill ultimately failed to pass in the face of opposition by Sinn Féin, the Ulster Democratic Party, the National Development Party, and the Progressive Labour Party. For Sinn Féin in particular, such a bill would be seen as going against overall modernization and a numerical agenda. Political commentators, however, suspected this was never designed to pass, but as an attempt to bolster support for social conservatives and the church. For an Orstat Crustal and the representative themselves from Sinn Féin, who presided over the situation that allowed Black Monday and the recent matters in the north to occur. Indeed, this decision has encouraged parishes peace from across the country to announce from the pulpit of Germophiliac liberalism of Sinn Féin as inimical to the native Irish culture and Catholic morality, and to attempt to persuade their parishioners to support Soret ASC. Let's call it ASC. You know what? That's a way better. Way better for me, at least. But I'll say with that, it's going to be a good point for us to end this episode for today. So if you enjoyed, thumbs up. Not enjoy, click thumbs down. You want to see more, subscribe, and goodbye.